Welcome to Level Up Academy podcast, where we explore the diverse set of skills that can be applied across various industries and professions. Each episode will deep dive into the world of transferable skills, discussing topics like communication, problem solving, critical thinking, and more. Join us as we speak with experts in different fields and share stories of individuals who have successfully transferred their skills from one industry to another. Whether you're a recent grad, a mid-career professional, or someone looking to make a career change, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and let's discover how you can leverage your existing skills to excel in any industry. Welcome to Level Up Academy podcast. This is your host, Dr. Leland, a serial educator, an opportunities designer, and a compassionate leader. Hello, everyone. I saw comments already. Dina's here. What? Thank you so much for being here today. Today is an amazing day. It's always an amazing day when I have my special guest. I know it's been a year. I keep saying special guest because it's true. Every single person in my podcast is a special person because you're created uniquely, right? Every single one of us goes through adversity, goes through life, goes through ups and downs. But really, I'm creating this podcast to highlight members on my community, whether you're a business owner, an author, I shouldn't say just, I hate that word. I got to delete that on my vocabulary, or anyone really who wants to level up and help the world. That's my mission, guys. You got to help me level up the world through conversations. So today we're going to have someone special to me. I get to know her more and more and more, and I love her. Hounds community loves her. If you don't know what Hounds is, ask Mike, Ash Banner, Sia, and Raquel. You'll know. But today, I had a conversation with her yesterday, and we were talking about what I'm not doing and what I'm doing. But obviously, I already know what I'm doing. So I'm looking at what am I not doing? And she's like, you're not doing this and this and this. I'm like, ooh, something for me to do. Thank you. And I love that. That's one thing I love about conversations. So if you don't have coffee chats with people in your network, you're missing out. Okay. There's so many amazing people. Like, hello, we have Johanna. I call her my twinsies. Okay. Obviously, we're not twins, but we have the same birthday, 7/11. So on our birthday, you can go to 7-Eleven and get a free Slurpee on us. Me and Johanna have the same birthday. She's an amazing artist. Check her out. She's on Tuesday. Sia, I'm here. Sia also. See, I can't keep up with Sia. Listen to me, sister. I can't keep up with you. And you're probably going to say the same thing, but she's busy. I don't know when. I know that you have non-business, but I think it's Tuesday. But I'm like, where is that thing? So she has her show. Right? We all have our own show. We have our own different personalities that we put into it. Let's see. Benita. I don't think I have coffee chat with her yet. But welcome, and good morning, Canada. Oh, is it cold in Canada? Probably. I don't do snow very well. Kailash, welcome. I don't think I've seen you before. Sister, what's up? Okay. Nicole is one of my sister from the Hounds, obviously. She is an amazing human being. If you haven't connected with her, connect with her. Her story is amazing. Who do we have here? Johanna. Oh, I forgot Dina. She was the very first person, by the way. Thank you so much for being here today and for supporting us. So before I bring her in, this is one of those conversations. She's like, well, what do you do? And I'm like, I do this and this and this and this and this. And the list goes on. She's like, wait, how come I didn't know about that? I'm like, oh, I thought I'd talk about it. And she's like, no. And I'm like, oh, so I'll bring it up. So today I'm going to bring you to what I do really. So this is my podcast. Okay. This is a live stream. This one right here that we're doing is a live stream. Live stream goes to my Facebook group, my LinkedIn group, obviously, and also my YouTube channel. I can say I just hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So all of the streams that is in my YouTube are on there as well. And basically, this podcast is my main podcast. This is only on audio. And I've done this for about since February of last year. So just a little over a year. And because of this podcast, I am super grateful and blessed to meet people all over the world. Okay. And speaking of the world, this podcast right here on audio actually is in 63 nations and countries. That's when you hear the intro. So about, I would say it's growing, which I love, but am I'm hoping someone helps me here. And I talked to Michael Gill yesterday, to somebody, because it's in 6 continents. And obviously we have 7, right? We need Antarctica. Other than the penguins out there, I need Antarctica to help me and listen to the podcast so I can have 7 continents. But right now, all of 6 continents are listening to my podcast. And about, like I said, 63 nations and countries, and it's growing. I have 193 on my list, so I have a long ways to go. Okay. So, but that's my goal for a lifetime. So I think I'm good. In a year, I got 63 nations to listen, and we have 193. So we're getting there slowly but surely. And the reason for that's not because of me, but because of my guests. Their story and adversity helps you. So hopefully, our guest today, and I'm sure, I shouldn't say hopefully, I am positively sure she will be able to help us calm our mind, including my monkey mind right now. I have so many things in my head. Another thing I want to highlight is also my website, luabyduckleland.com. I'm going to be switching my platform in a different way, and so stay tuned for that. This is what I'm talking about when it comes to my live stream on YouTube. So it will be highlighted based on who my guests are, so you'll know. And because of also this podcast, I got highlighted on LA Weekly, for my podcast and also my business. And shout out DFW. I can't put all the magazines here, but these are some of the ones that I'm super proud of. And then FeedSpot, and this is something that is near and dear in my heart. And I hope that you guys will help me level up the world. Send me people that you would like to get to know more, and also people that you value the conversations that they're providing, but also not just a conversation, but give us some mad skills or tips or two on life itself and what they did well. I would definitely welcome them, okay, within your network. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to have our guests come in. Are you guys ready? I know I am. I hope you are. So.
I
Welcome.
I knew that would get you to laugh.
It did. It did. I was like, oh my word.
Okay, so seriously, CJ, before we actually connected and had a conversation, when you heard, wait, she's what? She's a hypnotist? Weren't you thinking like this?
Yeah, actually, that's why I asked you yesterday. I'm like, where's your thingy-majigger? You know, that thing that goes in the clock, and you're like, wait, I have it. I was like, wait, she does.
And
She does have it.
not only do I bring it out, it's blue.
I see blue, everything. I need to change this to pink. I'm like, I need to change this to pink.
Okay, so I know that pink is your color. We talked about this yesterday, and it was like, okay, blue, blue, blue. There's all this blue. It's intentional because all the colors have different energetic signatures. Blue, I bring the calm, and blue is calming. And you were like, oh, pink is mine. And I said, oh my gosh, CJ, this is so perfect for you because pink is the color of unconditional love. And that really speaks to who you are at your heart. So, congratulations on 1,000 subscribers for your YouTube channel. That is fabulous. That is absolutely something to celebrate. And it's a real testament to you have this mindset just by virtue of the fact that you call it the Level Up Academy. You are somebody who really lives the rising tide raises all ships. And so as I level up, you level up, we all level up. And it's by lifting each other up. So thank you for your mission. And thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, I know. Someone told me, CJ, you're creating a movement. I'm like, girl, I'm not doing anything. She's like, no, you're creating a movement. I'm hearing tears in my ear. I'm like, what movement is this? She's like, you know how you talk about empowerment and inspiring, and I think subconsciously you're not thinking about what's happening, but it's happening. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm listening to Sierra. I've never heard of Sierra on this level up thing. I'm like, level up, level up, level up. Like, let's go. I'm getting in their ears, right? Oh, Raquel, sister, hello. I love what she's like. Look at familia. And then what is that? Stephanie Dalfonso, I love you.
I
Woohoo,
love
right?
you too, Raquel.
I know. Oh, I'd say that is amazing.
No,
Michelina,
no, no,
love
no. Amazing. Right? Because,
oh, you need
we
to
wanna
breathe.
feel
Ah,
that calm, right?
well,
Alright,
that
so
actually works and helps me a little bit in there. So
so I
yeah.
was gonna mention, you talked about your monkey mind and that it's kind of on overdrive right now. So, can we stop for just a moment? Not even like, I like to do a good minute, which I'm not gonna take a whole minute, but can we just take a short amount of time. And if you would, if you're comfortable, close your eyes or let them come to a soft gaze and notice the air coming in and out of your nose, just like at the tip of your nostril. And ooh, you notice it comes in a little cool, then it comes back out. It's a little warmer. And just follow your breath for a couple of cycles and notice, oh, your monkey mind is probably going to jump in. You just notice it. I see you. Notice, come back to the sensation of your breath coming in and out of your nostrils. Come back to the sound of my voice, which intentionally is helping you to slow down and calm down. And open your eyes and come right back and notice how in that very short amount of time, it was like you pressed the reset button, right?
Yeah. No, I don't want to talk. Keep going. Keep going. Like, I don't want to talk anymore. Just keep going. I'm like, okay, keep going. What else do I need to do?
So
Like,
I
seriously.
do that intentionally in that really short amount of time to really put the fine point on it doesn't have to take a lot of time, right?
Mm,
My Obviously, my whole message is about bringing the calm and finding the calm, and this is not what I've been always doing. Move your bananas to the belt. To listen to your messages, press 1. I literally was the very first automated voice back in the 1980s when I was celebrity radio DJ Stevie Knox. So back in the 80s, first of all, I had such a blast being on the radio. It was so, so fun. And I was doing, voiceovers on the side to make a little extra cash. And I'm doing this thing and, move your bananas to the belt. Who had any idea back in the 80s where we were going with technology? And now, you can't get away from it. There's voices everywhere. By the way, if anybody from Zoom is listening or you know somebody who works at Zoom, please let me be your voice because every time I go onto a Zoom and I hear, this conference is being recording or recording in progress. Crazy. Like, okay, let's not use a computer voice here, but I'll do it for free for Zoom. So if you have a connection to Zoom, just because I would love to not hear that voice anymore.
I'm quick for free. Just shut it up. Oh my gosh.
So I've been using my voice for over 40 years to guide people. And first it was on the radio, not just to have fun, but that was my job was to entertain people and have a good time. And I also did a lot of good work with charity and being on the radio. It was a platform that allowed me to have an influence on people. And now in my second career, which I've been doing this for close to 20 years, I've been doing the research on stress and anxiety and sleep for over 20 years. Now I use my voice to guide people to find their answers inside because folks, we're like the answers are out there. We're always looking. And I can say I'm not immune from that, right? Oh, look for that bright, shiny object. The answers are all inside. Just like my favorite movie of all time is The Wizard of Oz. And
Oh,
the scene when Glinda in all her beautiful pinkness, my friend CJ, all her
Yeah.
beautiful pinkness comes down and she says, "Oh, my dear, you've had the power all along." And so
Oh,
each of us has the power, and we come into this world knowing how to be calm, how to be resilient, and then life happens and we forget how. And
yeah.
thank you, Benita. Benita, how's that for your voice? Okay.
When you say that, I'm thinking of like sexy confidence. I'm like, keep going. I'm loving it. Keep going. Hello, sister. I know she doesn't show up. Market doesn't show up ever on thing. It's always LinkedIn user. I hate that, but I know it's her.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say to you, CJ, from your intro was I have a great workaround for just because I found myself. My husband, by the way, is watching us now. He and I met 40 years ago when he hired me at a radio station, and
Nice.
he was my program director. So we would sit down, and it was really kind of uncomfortable because we would sit down and they had like a little skimmer where
Yeah.
every time you would turn the microphone on, it would start recording. So you would
Yeah.
only hear the talking. You wouldn't hear it, 4 hours,
The
right?
other
You
one.
could go through it in 20 minutes or whatever. And he would call me on my crutches when I'd say, um, and and all those filler things, right?
Yeah.
And just was
I
one
hate
of
that
them.
word. I know.
Not on the radio, but I really heard myself. And every time I say just, it totally like discounts whatever I'm
Yeah,
going to say
it
after
does.
that.
It belittles you as a whatever you're trying to say. Yeah, I hate it. And I try to catch myself because I'm like, okay, stop saying just CJ, stop. And I
Okay.
catch myself. Yeah.
All right. Simply, simply. Okay. Use that instead. So I just blah, blah, blah. Oh, I simply blah, blah, blah. Do you hear the difference? There's not as much ooh about it, right?
Mhm.
So I get into people's heads intentionally um, because our words matter. What we say truly matters. And if we think, oh no, it doesn't, yeah, it does. Not just what we say to other people, but really what we say to ourselves, right? So we say, I'm stressed, I'm stressed, I'm stressed. What happens? We're stressed. We're bringing it into the present moment. When instead we start saying, I have been stressed, I have been anxious, I have been, oh, all of a sudden it's no longer right here in the present moment.
The
It's more like
best.
it's in the rear view mirror
Yes.
saying, okay, I have been stressed. It opens up the possibilities that maybe I can learn to find some calm in the future.
Yeah. Speaking of that though, I'm sure most of people that you've been in podcasts, but me personally and my listeners would love to know, going back 20 years, give me a whirlwind synopsis of your life in 20 years and how you got here today. I know you have a book, but I wanted to know a little bit about how you even started 20 years ago. I know it was back in the 80s, but just 20 years.
So, excuse me, going back 20 years, it was a really, excuse me, I don't know if I can say this, but I'm going to. It was a really shitty time in my life. My husband had been told that he needed a life saving liver transplant or he was going to die. And he went in and out of liver failure over a dozen times. Each time he was like this close to dying. And so when we had moved here a few years before that, we had moved here. I'd done my last radio show, which was the morning show, which really set me on this whole trajectory because my sleep was a wreck. And I found myself at my kitchen counter smashing a bag of Cheetos because I had insomnia, I couldn't function, and I didn't know what to do. Right. So I went to the doctor. The doctor gave me medicine. And he also said, oh, well, by the way, your insomnia is because of your anxiety. I was like, what? I had spent my whole life walking around with my shoulders up like earrings, thinking that was normal and worrying about everything, but not just worrying about everything, worrying about the worst case scenario. My husband would get on a plane to go on a business trip. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, what if the plane crashes? And blah, 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 blah. Like going into this catastrophic thinking, which, by the way, I know there are some people listening that are going, oh yeah, I know that, because it's much more common than we think. So the medication worked for a short time and then it stopped. And I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? So I started researching. And one of the very first things I learned, and this was back in the mid 90s, was, people know it as tapping now. It's called emotional freedom techniques. And I was able to sleep again, and I was learning how to calm my stress and anxiety. So then we move here to Connecticut, and I have a choice to work at the local radio station for minimum wage. Now, I had been doing a morning show in Portland, Oregon, so my ego was too big at that point. I wasn't going to do that. Or, well, we're about 2 hours outside New York City. I could go to New York City and be a DJ, but then who would raise my kids? So I'm a stay-at-home mom. Michael goes into liver failure. Oh, I need to reinvent myself. What do I do? Ooh, I learned that I could go to school to be a life coach on the World Wide Web, because you think 20 years ago, this was brand new technology, right? So then I also got this nudge. My intuition is incredibly strong. It's one of my treasured gifts, is this gift of intuition. And, as you experienced in our conversation yesterday, CJ, that it allows me to really just kind of hone in on exactly what it is that you need to hear. So I get this little whisper to check out hypnosis. Man, when I tell you, that first day of my class, when I realized it could be that simple to make changes, I felt like the skies open up, the choirs of angels were singing, like, ta-da, this is what you're meant to
Angels
do.
coming down.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and you're right, Michelina. EFT is absolutely fabulous. And it's not the only way. That was the first thing I learned, and I love EFT, but if that's all I knew, I would have failed clients over the years, because I've had clients who were like, yeah, that doesn't work for me. So if I only had one tool, it's like, they say, if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So EFT is fabulous. Hypnosis is fabulous. All these other certifications. And I told you yesterday, because, by the way, you are really kind of quiet about this, CJ, but how many degrees do you have, my friend?
Should we talk about that? Or
Yeah, and another one on the way, right?
oh my gosh, yeah.
So, and you know what? I think you should be really proud of that. That's not bragging to say, yeah, you have worked your butt off to get these degrees, right? So, and I told you this yesterday, when I was 14 years old, I didn't know anything about the law of attraction, but when I was 14, I knew I was going to be a radio DJ, and I made it happen. And yet, when I went to start my hypnosis practice, I first started out. I don't know if she's on. We have somebody in our group who is really a wonderful caregiver advocate. And actually started my business as a caregiver coach, because I had been through this with Michael, and being a caregiver is tough. And
Right.
anybody who's listening now, I know that it's tough for you, but please remember, in the midst of all this, you got to be putting your oxygen mask on first.
Yep.
You have to take care of yourself, whether you're a caregiver in, whatever situation. You want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself first. Cause like they say on the airplanes, taking care of yourself, you can't take care of anyone else. But so I digress. I start my business as a caregiver coach. That wasn't such a great idea at the time. Then I learned hypnosis, and before the class was even over, I had rented an office. I had a website. Ooh, I was cutting edge technology back then. Everything was all set so that when I got my certificate, but I had this imposter syndrome because I didn't have any degrees like you do. Right. Thank you, Tracy. Yep. Tracy is our caregiver, the professional here. So I didn't have all these degrees, right? I had no degrees. I had gone from high school to radio because I knew that was going to happen. But so I got all these different certifications because I felt like I had to have these letters behind my name. And that was what was part of what was driving it, but it was also because I learned that one size doesn't fit all.
No.
So even in my book, there I am pointing at it, right? In my book, I have 35 different strategies because if I said, "Oh, here's the one way for you to be able to find your calm," yeah, CJ, you're going to go, "No, not for me." And
Yeah.
then, oh, that doesn't work. And instead, it's, oh, here's a smorgasbord. Let's find what works best for you.
Yep.
And when we can find what works best for us, and it's really, really simple, right? Because if it's not simple, you're not going to do it.
No.
Um, I'm gonna kind of put you on the spot, and I don't really mean it like in that way, but I'm just curious. Do you have a meditation practice?
For me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do actually.
Okay. And phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. But for those of us who are listening who don't have a meditation practice in place, if I say, well, the answer to all your questions, the way to find your calm is to meditate 20 minutes in the morning and again, meditate 20 minutes in the evening. Oh, I lost my Zoom connection or I lost, whatever. It's not going to happen. But when I say instead, like we started the show, where I'm just like, oh, I think that was less than a minute. And I'm like, oh, just come into this moment and follow your breath. Well, that you were able to do, right?
In
So,
live too, right? I'm like, okay, raise my hand. Where's your little thingy? What am I gonna do? Not even make me go crazy in this live. You will never give me a break. I look at
oh,
her. She's
thank
probably
you. Thank
Mississippi
you,
in there.
Sia. That's it, and that's it. I mean, think about you go into Costco or whatever, and they give you the little tastes, right?
Yeah.
There's a wonderful buyer psychology behind that where, ooh, this wasn't even on your radar, but it smells good. You go and have a little taste of it, and then you go and buy the product. And so in that analogy of the smorgasbord, it's and anybody who has my book, if you haven't noticed, if you look at the table of contents, all the techniques are in alphabetical order. That was intentional. So that even though the book is so thin, it's just over 100 pages, intentionally it's thin. It's you don't even have to read the whole book because I want you to just look through the table of contents and say, like a smorgasbord. Let me try this. Let me try this. Then you find two or three of your favorites and you action them when they're simple like that and you like them. You're going to do them again and again and again. And that's how habits are formed. Listening to something, thinking, oh, that was great, or trying it one time. If you joined in when we were doing that breath technique at the beginning, trying it one time doesn't fix everything, right?
Mm.
You don't go to the gym one time and like, oh, I expect I'm going to be buff, right? Um, how many people, and I'd love to see if people, were like on screen with us, I'd say, how many people put on the pandemic 15? And a significant amount of people would raise their hands. I, on the other hand, dropped 40 pounds, not 15. I dropped 40 pounds. And again, going back to the language of it, CJ, do you hear how I'm saying that? I dropped 40 pounds. Most people don't say that. Most people say what?
I gained.
Well, no, the opposite of gained. I dropped
Oh,
40
yeah.
pounds. So what would they say?
Wow, amazing.
No, no, no. They'd say, I lost
Oh,
40 pounds,
right. Instead
right?
of drop, yeah.
Well, what happens when you lose your keys?
You
You
gotta
go on
find it.
a mad hunt to go find them.
You
So I
gotta
am
find
not going on a
I have
mad
a
hunt.
tag.
I am not going on a mad hunt to find even one of those pounds. They're dropped, they're gone, they're way in the rearview mirror. But
Oh,
so,
I gotta use that. Yeah.
right? It's
What
the
I gain, okay, I gained 20 pounds extra. Like, seriously, I'm like, oh God, CJ. Yeah, I'm not happy with myself, but that's okay. We're working on that. I've been at the gym 3 times a week.
okay, good for you. And
Yeah.
could I invite you and anybody who's listening or watching or whatever, could I extend an invitation? And anybody who works with me will hear. I always say, oh, I'm extending an invitation. I never tell you, you have to do this or here's your homework because where are the answers? They're in you, they're not in me. So when we say, oh, I'll be happy when, right? I'm not happy with me. I'll be happy when I drop 20 pounds. I'll be happy when, how about if we instead find a way to be happy now and then let the rest unfold? Because we play this I'll be happy when game. And good Lord, have I done that numerous times through the years, right? I'll be happy when. Well, not only are we putting it off, like, oh, I'm going to be happy down the road, we're reinforcing, I'm not happy now.
Yep.
And so instead, if it's okay, I'm really looking forward to dropping these 20 pounds. And this is going to get into one of the techniques is affirmations, right? Because affirmations don't work. Ooh, I just heard a lot of people go, oh, I do affirmations all the time, but they don't work because when I was 40 pounds heavier, if I clicked my heels 3 times and I said, I easily drop 40 pounds, I easily drop 40 pounds, everything in me would be like, no,
Good
take a look
luck.
in the mirror, right?
Yeah.
Everything, all that nasty voice stuff would come out.
Yeah.
But instead, when we turn it into a question, well, why is it so easy for me to drop 40 pounds? Now, that's the way it's written in the book, Affirmations by Noah St. John, is that's it, just asking the question. I add in, ask the question for me, why is it so easy to drop 40 pounds? And so it is. So I'm affirming it. And then thank you, thank you, thank you. Because gratitude times three, putting that out in the universe is incredibly powerful. So if do we have a moment for me to share a quick little story about that, CJ?
Go for it. Go
Okay.
for it.
So I love sharing this because I can sit and tell you all day long how affirmations have worked in my life. I'm like, okay, great for you. When I tell you this, it's like, huh, maybe this stuff does work. So my both my kids are grown and flown now. And thankfully, I didn't know it at the time. I found out later, but all through high school, my son was telling people, referring to me to other people as the woo woo crackpot because hypnosis, whatever, right?
Oh,
Well, so here's this kid who is an Eagle Scout. He graduated top 20 of his class from Virginia Tech. And this kid graduated without a job. We were shocked, really shocked. So 2 months later, he reaches out to me and he says, he still has no job, by the way. He was living in Starbucks because they have free Wi-Fi and free refills for his coffee all day long. He reaches out and he says, you got anything you can help me with? I know. Let me tell you about affirmations. So several hours later, I get a text from him with snapshots of his book, his notebook, where he's written, why is it so easy for me to find the ideal job in this salary range? And so it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then he goes on to write pages and pages of why it's so easy. Now, you don't have to do that. And I certainly wasn't going to tell him he was doing it wrong because he was doing it his way. It doesn't mean it was wrong. It was just different.
yep.
Within 2 or 3 weeks, CJ, he had a really good job offer at his desired salary. But it gets even better. So, super mom that I thought I was, I get on the train, go to DC to meet him, and then drive down to the Florida Keys with him to go help him find a place to move in. Well, we check into the condo I've rented for the week, and negative Ned checked us in. He says, oh, the housing market here sucks. He's never going to be able to find a place, blah, blah, blah. I was like, Greg, now we can't hear him. We go back to the condo. We start doing our affirmations. Why is it so easy to find the ideal place to live at $900 a month? So he takes me over and he looks at this place and it was a hovel. And I was like, I am not letting you stay here. If I have to, I'll force you into the car and drive you back north. Now, physically, there was no way that was going to happen. But as a mom, I didn't want him living in a hovel. So we keep doing the affirmations. He ends up being contacted by a woman who has a two-room suite in her three-story mansion with an elevator within walking distance to the only beach in Marathon in the Florida Keys for $900 a month, which was exactly what we had been manifesting with the affirmations. Okay, so that is absolutely phenomenal. The cherry on top was she had really fancy washer dryer and didn't want to use it. So, oh, for $50 a month, I'll do all your laundry. Hello.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I'll give it to
I
you.
shared that story. Well, think about, a kid in his early 20s having somebody do his laundry. That was worth every dime
Yeah,
of
extra mom
$50.
right there, yeah.
Right?
Oh,
So I shared that story with somebody the other day, and she has a young adult daughter who's out looking for a job right now, and she's like, "Oh, I wanna share that with my daughter." I said, "Great. Go look at my blog. The story is right there." Because hearing it from me, okay, that's great. When you hear about this kid who was like, "Oh, yeah, the woo-woo crackpot," and, "Oh, this stuff works," it really does.
it does, and I've actually I'm glad you said that because last year was the hardest part of my life ever. Um, if I focus on the negative of my life, I wouldn't be here today with you guys talking. I'd be in my cave somewhere. I don't know where. Probably went to like Timbuktu, literally. But I sat down and just kind of reflected like, why are you focusing on everything that's going wrong in your life? Why don't you focus on what you have accomplished? Like all of those things I showed you literally was last year and maybe just one or two this year. But everything about my career and everything else helping other people was last year. And last year was the worst of my life, right? So if I really just focus on that, I wouldn't be able to help people highlight like yourself and help the rest of the world, right? So sometimes I think my thing is yes, we have bad things happening in our life and good things happening in our life. From that conversations that you just said, I totally believe in that. And sometimes if your head, and which mine does for the last 2 3 days, is just bouncing off the wall like I'm not doing this, no, 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 like I'm just arguing. I'm like, maybe I'm getting to be a schizo, maybe I need medicine at this point right now, like what is happening? And I literally, my 15-year-old, I swear she's going to be a psychiatrist, like the best therapist ever. And she's like, mom, she's very logical. She's like, well, you know that you don't do this, people pleasing anymore. And you know that you want to help. But you told me that you can't control people and you can only control your decisions, right? So why don't you just control yourself and see what's happy, like what's your happy medium? And if people resist that and you can't control them, just leave. And I'm like, why are you so smart? Like, who raised you? Like,
15-year-old, woo! That is
yeah, she
amazing.
literally she literally gave me back what I tell her all the time. She's like, just, find your happiness. And you told me you only live once and this is your life. And so live it, mom. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, you're right. I'm gonna do it. And then I
Alright.
start writing my questions and my answers to myself at the same time. I always do pros and cons. If I'm going through something that is making it difficult for me to make a decision, most of the time I make decisions, no problem. I don't look back. But sometimes there are times where I'm like, I'm just having a hard time. I write it down and I
Oh,
look at the pros and the cons. And if I see more cons, I'm out.
alright. So, big question. What's right now, CJ?
Having you is right now, for
Okay.
sure.
Thank you. A lot of people, when I ask that, like, kind of deer in the headlights because nobody's ever asked you that before, right? But it's literally one of the techniques in my book, and I'm pointing at it now. What's right now? Because we are wired for negativity bias. And I told you this yesterday when we spoke. Part of the reason, I wanted a little comedic opening here, but also when I did this, you saw my hand. And I learned this recently, and it was so incredibly mind blowing for me that when we're on Zoom, we want to make sure that people see our hands, whether it's, oh, hi, or hi, whatever, within the first 20 seconds. And it's because we are still wired the same way as when we lived in caves, right? We lived in the caves, we're wired for this fight or flight syndrome. So when somebody was approaching us, we immediately were looking at their can to see
Uh-oh.
come after us. Were they bringing us a nice treat to eat? Were they going to, reach out and shake our hands? So we are wired to look for the negative. And oh, I could get on a big soapbox about these freaking phones and technology. They are intentionally addictive. They are intentionally telling you all what's wrong. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? So, fun story about how this came to be in my book, and I'll go a little further with it. Right before I was going to publish my book back in 2018, I went to a very famous New York Times bestselling author's book launch, not realizing her book was about anxiety too. And she had us do this little exercise. She said, turn to the person next to you and ask, what's not wrong? And oh, you do this for a minute, and then we're going to switch, and then the other person's going to ask. And as a trained hypnotist, as a trained neurolinguistic programmer, I know that that is not the correct way to go about it, because you tell a kid when they're little, don't touch the hot stove, and they touch it. It's not because they're being willful, it's because our brains delete the negative. So what's not wrong actually gets you to be looking for what's wrong. So I get home and I find out, I get an email from Amazon saying, I need a couple of extra pages in my book, or the spine is not going to have the name of my book on the side. So I was like, oh, what's right now? So when we go to what's right now, the act of looking for something to be grateful for drops our cortisol levels, the stress hormones, by 23%.
That's amazing.
Just
That is
looking for something to be
amazing.
grateful for. All right.
Yeah.
Let's take it further. And that, by the way, is from happiness researcher. How cool a job title is that? Sean Acor. He's actually done research to prove this. Then let's take it a step farther. Dropping our cortisol by 23%. That is amazing.
That's huge.
When we drop the 9 to 11 inches from our brain, thinking about it, to our heart and actually feeling the gratitude, now we're talking. Now our bodies are naturally producing dopamine and serotonin, which are the happy hormones.
Yeah.
So, what's right now? Anybody who's listening, practice it, play with it.
Ask yourself, guys, what's right now? There's a lot of things that's right now. My daughter, who, oh, I don't want to cry. Am I getting emotional? Stop crying, CJ. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was hard 2 years ago during the pandemic. And the fact that I celebrated her prom, like, Saturday, and she looks so beautiful and she's so happy. And I'm like, I'm just happy being a mom like that. Just watching her grow slowly. And she has a job. She's like a barista now. She's like, Mom, you're doing your coffee wrong. Like, she has an attitude. I was like, girl, I'm doing my coffee the way I want to do my coffee.
She's a teenager. She's going to have an attitude.
And she's like, okay, Mom, I'll do your coffee. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do everything wrong in this house so you can just correct it.
Well, and I got to say, CJ, our kids, teens, and young adults are the ones who took the brunt of not just the pandemic, but all the social unrest, all the stress that we as adults have been dealing with. Kids, teens, and young adults had it the worst. And so I've had this initiative even since, pre-pandemic, is, thank you, Raquel, as I talk about my book again, I have an initiative with my book. You buy a copy of the book, I donate a copy to a school or organization that will teach some of these skills to kids, teens, and young adults. Because, again, I've had this initiative since pre the pandemic. We were not taught. Were you taught as a kid how to, find your calm, how to emotionally regulate?
No, I was taught to be stressed all the time because literally for the first 10 years of my life, I grew up in the Philippines, and Christians and Muslims are always trying to kill each other. Kid you not. At age 5, I opened the door and this guy holds his intestines to find my grandmother. I'm 5. Okay, I'm 5. And I'm like, okay, let me find her. So she helps him sew, and yeah, and at age 5, we had to learn how to defend ourselves because we could get killed at any time. So at age 5, I practiced with knives with the pigs. how to do it, where are the veins, every single, my grandfather taught us how to do it. So I'm like, I'm good with knives better than I am with guns. I'm just saying. I practice too,
Ooh,
but that's at age 5. That's what we had to do because that environment was so stressful because that's how we live. I didn't know any better. That's how we grew up. Like you have to watch 4 eyes literally while you do that. And we live in a compound and we have soldiers around our house, but you never know, right? And so that's how I grew up. Intense, no calm. What is that?
I'm so sorry. And that is still affecting you, whether you realize it or not
Yeah.
today. The traumas that we experience in childhood don't just stay in childhood. And I wrote a blog about that years ago that, what happens in childhood doesn't stay in childhood. And there's so much talk about trauma these days. And in one vein, I'm really, really happy about that. In another, it kind of drives me crazy because people go and take this, $100 certification and say, "Ooh, I'm a certified trauma expert." Be careful about that
Yeah,
because
I agree.
that's, big stuff. So what you're talking about, CJ, is huge, serious, capital T trauma. But there's also the less common, or it's not less common, but less recognized small t trauma. And that could be something as simple as somebody comes to me and they have a fear of highway driving. They have a fear that I'm thinking of a particular client who had a fear of merging onto the highway from
Oh,
the
right.
side
From the
street, right?
exit. Yep. Yep.
Okay, really, in any highway driving fears that I deal with, they're all very specific like that. So this turned out to be the root cause was because this person was in the back seat at like 5 years old as dad was going to merge onto the highway, freaked out, had a panic attack, had to pull over to the side of the road, get out, have, switch places with mom. So this 5 year old
Okay.
experienced this small t trauma, experienced father's trauma, and it
Yeah.
and it stayed with them and grew until it became unmanageable as an adult. So when you have childhood trauma, whether it's, and for you that is serious capital T trauma, um, or a small t trauma, it still has that lingering effect into our adulthood. So again, I would just say, if do have childhood trauma, and most of us do, just be careful about who you go to ask for help from that.
Yeah.
This is something that, obviously I've been doing this for almost 20 years. So I might have a little experience in it. It just really, it hurts my heart when I see people, and they probably are doing it with the best of intentions of, "Ooh, I have this certification and I can help you." But if they're not really well trained, there's a potential for things to just not go in the direction that you would hope.
I'm so glad you said that because my girlfriend and I were talking. Remember, I told you after my graduation, and Johanna's going to my graduation online. I hope you guys will do. I'll post the link. Um, I'm trying to get another degree in psychology, but I'm prepping myself on what it is and what it's all about, and see exactly if that's where we're going. Because let's be honest, I want to help myself before I can help somebody else. Okay, that's just who I am. And so
And
I showed you.
and yay, head of the
Yeah,
class to you for that.
yeah. And I showed you my certification. I said, yeah, that's certification. But literally, I can't practice that with anybody. I can't even, I'm slowly practicing it with myself because you need experience to really get going on seeing the many different people's, activities and things like that. So when people do get certification, I'm like, I got one. I have actually a lot, but I don't practice it. It's like language, you know it, but if you don't practice it, you're going to lose it, right? So practice. I'm so glad you brought that up because it's just now it's not happening. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
yeah.
and here 20 years ago, I live in the state of Connecticut, and I'm looking around for a hypnosis class, and I'm seeing, oh, I can become a certified hypnotist in one weekend. And I was like, I don't think that's quite enough training if we're going to be, doing this kind of deep work. Well, I learned on my first day of real hypnosis training, which was a lot longer than just one weekend, was the the very first day, she said, how many of you can read? Raise your hand if you can read. Oh, okay. Well, most hypnotists are reading scripts. And since you already know how to read, I'm not going to teach you how to read scripts. I'm going to teach you how to find the script inside your client. Ah, ding, ding, ding. Because if I only had a script for, say, all the smokers that I've helped over the years, and I've helped a lot. I'm also really good at helping people with smoking and drinking and addictions because I've been there. Right. I have been a non-smoker for half my life now. And I've been a non-drinker for several years now. And it is not going to work if you have a script. If you read the same script to help somebody to become a non-smoker, or you read the same script, and I'm not talking just hypnosis, there are EFT scripts out there too. Okay, here's the script for a drinker. Well, maybe you're going to help someone, maybe not. And if you stumble into some of those trauma areas and you are not trained to be able to help someone, you could actually end up hurting people instead. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I feel like I got on a soapbox there, but you can tell I'm like really passionate about
I'm
it.
glad you said that though, because there are people out there, and like you said, they have good intentions, right? Everybody, I think, really wants to help other people, and that's wonderful. But sometimes you might be hurting them instead of helping them. So just kind of be aware of that. And Raquel, you're killing me. Look at what she said. One of your 7,000 degrees. Oh, you're
7,001 to come.
oh my gosh. I'm an advanced student. That's who I am. I will be a student forever. I learn every day. Some of them are not degrees, guys. Some of them are certifications. Some of them are just about life and how you make decisions left and right. How, I see life as a chess piece. Like you have certain things and skills that you have, and you're the queen of that chess piece, right? You're the queen and the king. And so you got to protect yourself. And all of the skills and tools and degrees and non-degrees and special abilities that you have, those are your front ones. You got to move those chess piece to protect yourself. And it's okay to have boundaries. Okay. I have managed a long time to not have boundaries, and I'm getting older as I mature. I learned that boundaries is so healthy for you. And if they have a problem with that, and I told Stephanie, some people have a problem with my boundaries. That is not my problem. That is a you problem that I have
Yes.
boundaries, right?
Yes.
And if you want to talk crap about me, I'm okay with that because your words does not matter to me. Doesn't matter because I created my boundaries. And if you have problems, that's a you problem. I'll give you a mirror, like to look at yourself.
All right. Can I do one more little technique before
Yes,
we
please.
wrap up?
Yes, yes.
Because somebody who's on here with us, I know will go, oh yeah, I remember you talking to me about this. I love talking about boundaries because we have to have boundaries and they have to be healthy, right?
Hmm.
So most of us, many of us, when we think about boundaries is, oh, we're going to build this brick wall around us. But all that does is separate us, right? And that's not really, when we're coming from this heart space, that's not really what we're hoping for. So rather than looking at it as this big brick wall that we set up around ourselves, what if instead we thought of boundaries like a little picket fence or a little split rail fence? And so the air can move in and out. We can see the other person on the other side of that fence. Oh, and we have the little gate that we get to choose. We get to choose whether
Open
we
or close.
open the
Yeah.
gate and let them in. So when we come from that different perspective of, oh, it's the split rail fence, I can see you over. I get to decide whether I let you come in or not. It really is a very different understanding for boundaries. Do you find that, CJ?
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely did. It started with my family for sure. It took a long time, but it started with my family. And I shared with you my personal journey with that. It started with my family, and I used to have 10,000-foot wall, literally like iron wall, clay, whatever you put. That boundary was like, whoop, you can't come in at all. Like I shut down. And that's my other abandonment issues. But I shut down. I'm like, nope, you're not letting in. But as I gradually get to know people, and when they need help and I need help, that wall just came down. And like you said, it's like I could still see them, I could still communicate, I can love them from afar. Because sometimes you're not going to have people 100% like you, or even within your family, right? You're not going to get along. But having that, like, just, I'm able to see you, we can communicate, we can be adult about it and then move on. It actually helps me not be angry. And so that's why I'm doing that. Because I used to be getting angry a lot, and have this animosity, and I could feel my chest just like crunch. And I'm like, why am I doing that? It's not. Why are you living in my head rent free? Hello? No, that's expensive head right there. Like, I can't do that. Right. And my brain is expensive. No. So I'm like, okay, how are you going to do that? And that's why I stumbled upon with psychology and unravel, right? And I didn't even know coping is bad for you. And I'm like, why is coping bad? I've been telling my kids all this time. They're like, no, because you're just band-aiding the problem. You need to dig deeper what the problem, release the coping mechanism, so it's no longer even a problem. I'm like,
Yep.
oh, that makes so much sense. So I'm seeing different ways to help myself so I could help others. So I'm glad you said that.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for this conversation.
Wait, Johanna said a last question before we go. Johanna said, how do you handle when others don't view your boundaries as healthy?
Well, you can't control them. This is something that in AA, which, by the way, is not a program that I subscribe to for myself or for others because of a whole other host of reasons. But I know in AA, one of the things is you cannot control or change other people, places, and things. So when other people don't view your boundaries as healthy, it's not your problem. It's
Mm-hmm.
theirs, right? So, yeah, you're going to get that pushback, especially if, in families. Oh my gosh, we could spend days talking about family dynamics.
Yeah.
But when we have these patterns, right? These well-worn patterns of, I do this, you react this way. You do this, I react. Well, we don't want to react. We want to respond instead. It's a healthier way. And so when we put up those boundaries, at first you're going to get pushback and they're going to try and run all over you. It's important that you stay inside. And I do this fun little exercise with my clients of being able to stay in that idea of the picket fence or the split rail fence. It's important for you to stay there and keep that gate closed. And if they're not willing to open it up, yes, 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 Raquel. If they're not willing to respect it, then you keep that gate closed. And yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
remember I told you about those doors and keys as far as failure? That's my mentality. So when I don't see failure as a done deal. I see failure as, oh, I got the wrong key. I'm just gonna keep going until I open that door.
yeah,
That's
it's a
how I
learning
see things.
opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, this is a wonderful conversation. Thank you guys for being here today. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Stephanie. I do want to know, where can they find you, because some of my listeners will not be able to see the live. Where can they find you?
They can find me at stephaniedalfonzo.com. Hopefully you'll have the show notes where they can figure out how to spell it. Or
Yeah.
a simpler way to find me is to download 5 of the tips from my book for free at ibringcalm.com. Um,
Oh.
yeah, so, please download it. It'll give you 5 of the techniques from the book and start playing with it. Again, even there's only 5. You don't even have to learn all 5. Pick 2 or 3 that work for you and practice them and action them. And if you can do it with a buddy for accountability, even better. Stephen Covey said, accountability breeds responsibility. And not
Oh.
responsibility the way we have always been taught, but what I alluded to a moment ago of react or respond. We don't want to be reacting. We're not
Mm.
in our power. We're reacting, we're giving away our power. When we respond, that's when we're in our power. So ibringcalm.com.
Right there, guys.
Oh, thank you.
ibringcalm.com, right? Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I
Yeah.
totally appreciate you. And this is not the last or the first, all right? Like, it's not. We're going to bring the world all the way to us, okay? Well, it ended, guys. I'm sorry about that. Stephanie just went away and I went away. I don't know what happened to those tech issues, but I'm glad that you guys are here. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for Stephanie. Thank you, Raquel, sister, for actually showing us love today. All right. Have a wonderful day, guys. Have a happy week. I will see you in your live shows. We got to go to Susanna and Paul's. Bye, guys. Until next time.